Welcome to Deleted Saves. On this episode, Alien Isolation on PS4. I've talked a lot on this show about games based on licensed properties, usually tabletop properties. However, this is not the first time we have discussed the Alien franchise, at least in a roundabout way with Alien vs. Predator. But this will be the first time we focus solely on the Alien universe with a game directly based on the 1979 sci-fi horror film. Let's discuss 2014's Alien Isolation. Before I discuss the game itself, I'll go into a bit of the movie upon which it is based, as it heavily influences the game itself. In 1979, director Ridley Scott and writer Dan O'Bannon released what may be the most important science fiction horror movie of all time. A retro-futuristic time capsule of ideas of what humanity's future among the stars might be if it were mundane and ruled by free corporate reign to do whatever they wanted to do. The movie follows the crew of the Nostromo, a commercial tug, returning to Earth after some time abroad in deep space, with the crew in hypersleep, when the ship's AI, named Mother, wakes them up in response to a distress call. As per their commercial company policy, they must investigate, and a portion of the crew descends to an unmapped moon off of a planetoid. While Ellen Ripley, Sigourney Weaver's character, decodes part of the message as a warning, the away crew finds an alien ship with a massive alien driver at the wheel and a cargo full of white egg-like structures, one of which bursts open, and an unknown creature built like a vagina with spider legs latches onto the face of a crew member. They return to the ship and unsuccessfully attempt to remove the thing, but it eventually dies and falls off. The afflicted crew member later dies when his chest explodes and an aggressive alien creature emerges, which escapes and grows to over 7 feet in height within the bowels of the ship within hours of its grisly birth. From here, the ship's crew is picked off one by the monster until only Ripley and the ship's cat mascot, Jones, are left, and they escape into the emergency escape shuttle, detonating the Nostromo in a short-range nuclear blast to kill it. But the creature proves too smart, as it hides away on the escape shuttle, and Ripley blows it out of the airlock into the void of space. From here, Ripley and Jones re-enter hypersleep and hope, in her final message to the company or whomever may hear it, to be picked up by the company in a few weeks, as she is the last surviving member of the Nostromo. Spoiler alert, they would not be picked up for 57 years. I'm not going to lie. The character of Ellen Ripley was my first introduction to the capable, quick-thinking warrior woman, and the template of her has always been the forefront of my mind when developing such characters of my own. So you can understand the movie left an impression on me. But how does this affect the plot of the game? Well, in the beginning of the second movie, the James Cameron-directed Aliens, we learn that Ripley had a daughter who was around 12 years old when Ripley took the job aboard the Nostromo. And that daughter has since died at the age of 66 due to cancer, meaning Ripley is far older than we know, due to the side effects of unnaturally extended life because of hypersleep. And as far as the movies are concerned, that's the last we hear of that plot thread. However, the team at Creative Assembly picked up that plot thread and ran with it. In the game, we play as Amanda Ripley, daughter of Ellen Ripley, who has been seeking some sort of closure or evidence of her mother's disappearance, as the Nostromo never returned, nor did anyone find anything related to it since she was a child. Amanda, now an adult and working various repair and engineering jobs at the Weyland-Yutani outposts across the stars while searching for her mother, as the Nostromo was a Weyland-Yutani ship. As the game begins, Amanda is told by Samuels, an android owned by the company, that the Nostromo's flight recorder was discovered and is currently sitting on Sevastopol Station, owned by rival corporation Seegson, and which is in orbit around gas giant KG-348 in the Zeta Reticuli system. Sevastopol Station is in bad shape, mostly in the late stages of abandonment, as the station has been decommissioned and all the workers and their families are moving elsewhere across the stars. However, When Ripley, Samuels, and Weyland-Yutani executive/company lawyer Nina Taylor arrive, the station is heavily damaged and all communication is offline. The three try to enter via spacewalk, but something goes wrong on the umbilicus during the walk, and the three become separated, with Ripley barely making it inside the station on her own through an exterior airlock. Once inside, we are treated to a first-person perspective, as we will be playing for the entirety of the game. Ripley, as I'll be referring to her for the rest of the review, has to sneak her way further into the station, as we learn the mechanics of sneaking, which will be critical to the success within the frame of the game. Sneaking, hiding, and evading enemies will be your best defense across the length of the game. Even in this early area, the game begins building its atmosphere of tension, with dark corridors, sudden movements and noises which the player must listen for, and even a feature that is used that turns on the PS4's controller microphone to listen for sounds in the player's room, which could be used against them to alert enemies to the character's location. This is also where Ripley first meets the station's creepy, rubber-faced, and roughly humanoid androids called Working Joes, a far inferior model of the realistic androids Weyland-Yutani makes. Even Samuels hates them, as they make his type of artificial person look bad, and because of their inferior programming and artificial intelligence. Working Joes are brutally impersonal and completely unhelpful when questioned, but for the moment they are hardly the worst thing. The station is falling apart, and any remaining crew have turned into paranoid raider gangs, trying to gather what they can to get off the station for cash, and because of something that is picking them off. Ripley encounters another survivor who at first almost kills her, but with some fast talk and her admitting that she has a ship parked off just the station, this bald, sweaty British fellow is willing to help her out for a spot on the ship. This is another odd hallmark of the Alien franchise, that apparently in deep space everything is close and hotter than hell, as everyone is constantly dripping with sweat. Apparently life support does not come with air conditioning in the far future. After this dude gives us a headset flashlight combination and teaches us how to navigate the station using tools, including that it is better to run from combat than to stay when thugs are beginning to chase the two of them, he gets sucked up into a vent and killed by something, leaving Ripley, and us as the players, to fend for ourselves. Ripley must make her way to where the flight recorder is supposed to be, but by now the Working Joes have turned homicidal, and Ripley must use a heavy wrench to bat them into oblivion if and when she can, but avoiding them on their patrols is the better idea. It isn't too far into the game where Ripley finds the Nostromo's flight recorder, which has been deleted and the casing damaged. This also unleashes the true threat of the game, the alien xenomorph, a creature that has been haunting cinemas, video stores, and game shells since its debut in 1979. This is the real hook of the game. The alien is unbelievably intelligent, and the program and creative assembly did to make this thing seem like a true thinking predator has, at least in my experience of survival horror games, yet to be matched. The rest of Alien Isolation becomes a game of cat and mouse, peeking around corners and hoping the thing does not get into the vents, as it can easily follow you there with no way to defend yourself, and hiding in lockers and in shipping crates, even to the point where if it stops outside of your hiding place and it is listening, and you will need to pull away and hold your breath until it goes away, like a nightmare out of a child's dream. Along the way, you will get a revolver, shotgun, bolt gun, and even flamethrower to defend yourself, but they will only work against gangs and Working Joes, and they are useless against the alien itself, except for the flamethrower that can scare it off for a little bit. And with each bullet fired from this point on, you may draw the alien to your location. Survival means getting the hell off the station, which Ripley learns that its orbit is decaying and it will fall into the gas giant within 12 hours. But the alien hunting her is making that very difficult, and Ripley will try to reconnect with those who came with her, and of course, that is provided she can turn the communications back on and tell her ship, the Torrens, to swing by and pick her up. So getting past the Working Joes and their control AI, called Apollo, to get communication back becomes our goal. Along the way, we will be dodging the alien at every turn as it hunts us or disappears at will. Station survivors will die as they are picked off by the alien. Working Joes will also kill people. And Ripley begins to uncover that Sevastopol Station was not the random victim of xenomorph invasion. In fact, the higher-ups at Seegson learned of the alien's existence due to Ellen Ripley's last words and their scientists, in an effort to beat out competitors, got a hold of the xenomorphs somehow, and tried to cultivate them to weaponize them. Then when things went wrong, they abandoned the station. Things going from bad to worse. When Ripley can get back to Samuels and Taylor, Taylor is badly hurt from the spacewalk and needs medical attention. But as the hospital ward is shut down, they need to get her to the Torrens. Samuels tries to overpower the murderous Apollo AI with his own superior programming, but the system kills him instead. And by the end, even with their allies, Ripley ends up alone and in the belly of the station, in the nuclear core of the station, which has been overtaken by the aliens. As it turns out, there are hundreds of the fucking things, and each alien we have encountered game-wide has not been the same one, as Ripley was able to kill a few through scripted events, but they keep coming back. Using her skills as an engineer, she programs the station to detonate, and she's finally able to get the attention of the Torrens. But we also learn that Taylor was sent to recover not the flight recorder, but an alien itself for study, and that a prisoner aboard the station has found the flight recorder first, and learned of the location of the site where the crew of the Nostromo encountered the alien ship, on LV-426. And Seegson went and got one, mainly by letting a facehugger attach itself to the recovery crew, then dissecting what happened when the creature was born. But if nothing else, Ripley finds a copy of the flight recorder and gets to hear her mother's last message to her, and is able to get the Torrens after needing to abandon a fellow survivor who gets attacked by a facehugger, and is chased out of the station by a horde of aliens. She blows the dock and is sent hurtling toward the Torrens, and she gets aboard, only to discover an alien has gotten aboard the Torrens and is killing everyone. Cornering it and herself in the airlock, she jumps into a spacesuit and blows it and herself out of the airlock. Ripley's floating semi-conscious in space, waiting to die, when she is awakened by a searchlight, and that is where the game ends. Wow, this sure was a game. But where do we stand? Alien Isolation is a masterclass in taking a known franchise and actually expanding upon it with a semi-original character, instead of bloating or diminishing it. Of course, there would be those who would argue the film series itself became bloated pretty quick, and I would be among them, as I think any entry in the series after the second movie is, shall we say, hot diarrhea, but hey, we all have our likes and dislikes. And Creative Assembly did their job well, if one is acquainted with their pedigree. Creative Assembly are generally the team behind the Total War franchise, among others, and are willing to go into great detail to pull off their strategy games. But since they were not experienced in the concept of survival horror, which this game is firmly in the camp of, they had to hire outside help from other studios, which quickly grew the team. They decided to make the game more aligned with the 1979 Alien movie, with its grainy VHS-style monitors and computers, telephones on receivers, monochromatic outputs, and the like, in the retrofuturistic style of the 1970s, originally envisioning humanity's actual deep space exploration, provided, of course, the modern conveniences we have today had not been invented, which, of course, they could not have imagined in the 1970s. I think this is a brilliant choice, as most other games based on the franchise went with the Aliens war model, full of strike teams and devices that look a bit closer to our modern period. Personally, I wish more developers would do this style of retro sci-fi game, but let's be honest. In the wake of games like Mass Effect and the modern Star Wars games, I think players would go into open revolt. But to achieve the look they were going for, Fox Studios supplied the team with a whopping 3 terabytes of behind-the-scenes footage and pre-production materials, including costume designs, close-ups of set pieces, and items held by the actors and the original sound effect recordings. With the team known for trying to achieve maximum detail, I think they pulled it off, and it really sets the mood. In fact, it may set the mood too much. The game is a tension-filled survival horror title to the point of physical exhaustion. I am more than happy to play a scary game, and I wouldn't say I'm pretty well versed in them by this point in my hobby experience. But holy fucking shit, I was actually wiped out after every play session. It's not sudden jump scares that are the worst, and usually by the time those happen, it is a relief as it is the alien xenomorph screaming as it has discovered you right before it grabs you and automatically kills you. It is that very tension, trying to plan routes and make split-second decisions or last-minute jumps back into hiding locations as the alien or one of the working Joes suddenly doubles back on what you thought was a vacated position and you were in the open. That can just be too much after a while. When, after an hour of play, I would have to physically and forcibly uncurl my hands from the controller as they had turned into misshapen tension claws, and I could feel myself vibrating slightly, like I had just got back from a particularly intense gym workout. I found out the game had been designed so well that the usual tension and release, and safe rooms, and most other survival horror games that give you a breather were long gone, and even while saving, you could be attacked and killed. The only real tension break in the game is, as I said earlier, in the clawed fingers and lethal double jaws of the alien itself. The xenomorph is a true killing machine, genuinely unstoppable, and not easily deterred from hunting you. And every weapon you collect is about as useful as dealing with it as a chocolate teapot is for making a cuppa. Later in the game, you get a flamethrower, much like Ellen Ripley did in the movie, which can chase the alien temporarily, but it does the enemy no real harm. At least it opens up some breathing room to get through areas faster or find a better hiding spot when the creature inevitably returns with a rattle of vent covers and a heavy thud. As I have said before in reviews of other survival horror titles, we have done unstoppable pursuer bosses before, to greater or lesser effect. But the alien is just something else entirely. There is very little defense against it, and hiding is not a safe bet. So it can easily push the nerves beyond the point of wanting to either play very long or return to the game after a while, which I do think helped throw it off a lot of players who might otherwise have stayed through the experience. Additionally, since we can't get away from this shit now, Amanda Ripley will be putting her engineering skills to use throughout the game by assembling all sorts of useful survival shit, like medpacks, remote bombs, noisemakers, and the like. Yes, Alien Isolation has added crafting mechanics, and the game also requires that you hunt for junk while dodging murderous robots and the title enemy. I'm not sure this actually helped the experience at all, and to be honest, by this point, I'm a bit sick of this shoving crafting mechanics into every fucking game under the sun. But sure, why not, I guess, at this point. I gotta make the engineer look good in your retrofuturistic games, I guess. Has anyone ever asked why we do this to in-game engineers? I know they do get an education on how to machine parts and design shit, but I cannot say any one engineer I knew in real life was a master of hacking trash together to turn into pocket nukes or flaming laser swords. But hey, video games, am I right? One thing I really did like, and this is a minor point, was the save system, where you had to reach dedicated save file spots, wherein you had to shove a rewritable 8-track cassette into a wall outlet, which fit quite well with the theme. And about half the time doing this, you'll get a message pop up that warns you that the area is not safe and saving might be a bad idea. It's never a bad idea, at least not in my experience. But yes, it is possible if you are saving in an area the alien is actively hunting you, it could kill you while saving, and you can basically abandon that save file altogether. So, pro reviewer time. Alien Isolation was generally well received, mostly based on the genuine look of the setting matching the look of the movie it was based upon. A movie, I should remind everyone, that was damn near a box office flop when it debuted, but was registered as a classic that should be included in movie pantheons everywhere, only in the decades to follow it. And due to the tension the game's AI uses to make the alien itself almost living, thinking hunter, pitting its wits more against the player than the character. But on the opposite side of the aisle, critics said the characters were wooden, showing no growth, including Ripley, whose only real trait seems to be not wanting to be eaten. I mean, really, you expect character growth in a horror movie? Full of side characters designed to be chewed up by the monster as fast as possible? Even in the best horror titles, characters are generally one note, with the final survivor or survivors growing, as it were, just by being alive at the end and maybe a little smarter or more paranoid for the experience. The other concern is that the game was just too long, repeating too many story beats, and that by the 100th time the alien kills you, you are more annoyed than scared. I mean, fair point on that last bit. The game was not shy about showing you what is hunting you, and to be honest, the monster was spoiled literally decades ago. It would be like being upset that you got killed by Jason Voorhees in a Friday the 13th game. There's literally no surprise here, motherfucker. But getting killed over and over because you didn't find the exact right hiding spot the game wanted you to find can be a pisser. But is it too long? Well, to maintain the level of tension it does, yeah, absolutely. But let's do a comparison. How Long to Beat, the game length website, says Alien Isolation clocks in at 18.5 hours following the main quest. By comparison, Resident Evil 4 Remake clocks in at 12 to 15 hours, not counting cutscenes. So maybe not really by current standards. But again, I say the game can feel way longer due to exhaustion and mental fatigue brought on by dealing with the atmosphere of the game and its brooding nature. If you put someone in a situation where they are under constant pressure with no end in sight, of course they will snap and quit when they can. But Alien Isolation still received many accolades for its atmosphere and tension, and is considered one of the best survival horror games in recent memory. However, sales reported by publisher Sega, now there's a name we haven't heard on the show in some time, as being weak. And while there had been an idea for a sequel, most of the creative assembly team who made this game no longer works there, and a sequel seems unlikely. But who knows? Maybe Sega will publish a Prometheus-based game. Fuck, wouldn't that be a cold sack of vomit to the face as an experience? Alien Isolation is the kind of game where you have to make of it what you can. If you have no interest in the universe of the franchise, then there's nothing here for you. If you would rather watch a 90-minute movie and get the same point rather than playing a game for 18 hours, then that's fair enough. But if you're willing to immerse yourself in the setting, as presented, then there is a lot here to love. It is the exemplar interpretation of the current gaming sphere of the haunted house in space, and a damn fine sci-fi horror game, which, to be honest, we do not get that often, outside of a few other well-known games and sort of legendary films. But like Daffy Duck's trick at the end of the Looney Tunes short Showbiz Bugs, you can only do this once. We've seen what happens in other horror game series when series fatigue sets in. The creators either have to get crazy, or they turn it into something else that is a shadow of its former self. There is also the problem with licensed games. If you aren't already somewhat invested in the property by other means, then it is unlikely that you'll give much a shit about what happens. So Alien Isolation was hit with that double whammy, and it looks like it will be forever a one-and-done game, lost amid a sea of horror titles with more clout. But I thought it was good. When the tension had left my body and I was able to think more rationally about it. The developers had achieved what they set out to do, especially since it was not their genre of expertise. So if you're into horror titles, try it out. If you like it, awesome. If you don't like it, that's fine too. It is a game that you will have to have certain tastes, or otherwise it will not be for you. But also, don't try to intellectualize it. You're wasting your time. It is a run and hide simulator with extra bits, and a slightly better chance to defend yourself. But for myself, I'll be keeping it in my collection. You never know when you'll need a good, tension-filled game to counterbalance the times in life that are just going too easy and too good, and you need to be kept on your toes. This is Phil, latest reviewer of Alien Isolation, signing out. Thank you for listening. Deleted Saves would like to thank Brad, Keith Gasper, Orden Wells, and Masked Llama for being patrons of the show. If you would like to become a patron of the show, please go to patreon.com and check out Deleted Saves podcast. All donations go directly towards maintaining the show itself. Thank you.